Hi, my name is Dave Vellony, and I'm a law professor at the Regent University School of Law and former executive pastor at River Oak Church in Chesapeake, Virginia. While serving as a pastor at River Oak, I experienced firsthand three truths that the church cares aims to address. People are hurting, counselors are booked, and pastors are stretched far too thin. So when my friends Dr. Jim Sells and Dr. Jen Ripley approached me about coming alongside the church cares to support the effort to connect people who need help with people who help, I was thrilled to be part of a movement aimed at equipping church members to walk more effectively with others through life's struggles, to care, pray, listen, disciple, and share biblical principles in peer-to-peer relationships. You know, the church being the church, discipling our people into growing relationships with Jesus, particularly those in distress, just made sense to me. And it was at the heart of what I'd always felt ministry is all about. But as we approach church leaders about building out their care ministries, there's often some hesitation. And unfortunately, many times it centers around legal concerns. So I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about how our biblical calling to love others, to show compassion, and to make disciples really cannot and should not be pushed to the back burner by fear of the legal consequences of carrying out the imperatives of our faith. Of course, we absolutely need to exercise wisdom, and it's important for churches to have appropriate insurance policies and to be connected to local attorneys who can provide needed advice. But that's true about all aspects of our church ministries, from children's and youth ministry to facilities usage to HR and financial policies to security concerns, as well as to care ministries. So as church leaders, we should never shrink back from a key aspect of our calling that the Apostle Paul expresses in Ephesians 4:12, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, to train our people how to more effectively listen, help, share, and minister to their friends and peers who come to church for encouragement, comfort, spiritual growth, and a renewed spirit. So I guess my first word of encouragement to pastors and church leaders is this: don't give in to fear. Let's be the church. But I will say that there are a few things to remember from a legal perspective when building out a care ministry. Now, I don't share this as specific legal advice to you or your church. That's for you and your local attorney to do. But here are some general principles that we should all keep in mind as church leaders. The first is that the state regulates therapy, but may not regulate religion. So to avoid state control over our efforts to just effectively equip our lay listeners, we need to do two things, and your local lawyers can, of course, help you make sure you do these well. One, we need to clearly delineate the difference between our biblical equipping ministry and therapy. And second, we need to be clear that the help that we provide is unmistakably a demand of our religion. So to say it another way, we must be clear that in our care and helper ministries, we are engaged in the religious practices of discipleship, accountability, comfort, encouragement, and, well, the list goes on, rather than the practice of therapy. I'll talk in a minute about the importance of running all your ministries through local rules using a local attorney, but the church cares bases their assistance and training on best practices, focusing on training lay leaders to demonstrate God's love by simply walking with others through life's struggles. The essence of what church ministry has been all about for hundreds, really thousands of years since the early church. And I'd like to mention a book here that you might find helpful when thinking about legal issues in the context of care ministries. It's called Legal Issues in Biblical Counseling. It's by T. Dale Johnson and Edward Charles Wild. I've got a copy of it right here, and it's a great resource from which I'm drawing many of my comments on this video. And while the book addresses some more advanced aspects of care ministries through the use of biblical counselors, it also gives some practical advice and addresses many of the fears that church leaders express when setting up more basic care and helping ministries. And I'd also like to point you to Shaunti Feldman and Dr. Jim Sells' book, When Hurting People Come to Church, a book central to what the church cares is all about. In it, they explain how caring for people looking for help is essential to our calling. And the book provides excellent examples that can help us delineate those important differences between our biblical equipping ministries and therapy. The book also provides some helpful tips on how our people can come alongside friends and acquaintances at church who are in distress and simply encourage them and help them grow in their walk with the Lord. You see, the church cares is simply about effectively doing what we've always done, living out the Great Commission by making disciples. That's how you explain it. And that's how you unmistakably show that it is an imperative of our faith. And I guess this is where the lawyer in me causes me to reiterate it again by saying that's how you clearly demonstrate that what we are engaged in is the religious practice of discipleship rather than the practice of therapy. And one of the reasons the Church Cares emphasizes the importance of well-drafted intake forms when establishing more intentional care ministries is to make the distinction between discipleship and therapy as strong as possible. And how do we make this important distinction? Well, it's not enough to just say we use the Bible, although of course it's critically important that we say that we do, because the state is often unconcerned about the source of our authority. And it's important to recognize that therapists may not impose values according to the state, but our work is, of course, to help those we're encouraging to be transformed and conformed to the image of Jesus. So we need to think about our role in terms of friendship and personal relationships, not just professional relationships, and to focus on what we're helping people to do, which is grow as followers of Jesus. Listen, the state as a general rule has refused to concern itself with the content of explicitly religious instruction. The state interest at stake is public safety, and it's important to note that our interest does not constitute a matter of public safety. It is the practice of the central mission of the church. To make disciples is simply not an option, it's an imperative. And the happiness that we hold out to those we're listening to and helping is not the happiness promoted by secular therapy. Rather, it's the joy found in the life-altering demands of being a disciple of Christ. So a few final words about the legal context of developing a care ministry. First, local church, local lawyer. It's wise to seek local legal counsel when faced with situations that potentially have legal ramifications. And this is true beyond just the context of our care ministries. Second, wisdom and planning. Plan ahead when it comes to expanding your care ministry. And when the law is the issue at stake, then ask a lawyer and find a lawyer who knows the right law, right? Because no two states are identical and there might even be some local nuances. Third, use a lawyer before problems arise. Get to know them. It's important that you have an understanding of each other and a good relationship. Johnson and Wilde remind us in their book that David picked up 5 stones, not just one, when he headed into battle with Goliath. So be wise and plan ahead. And last, remember that most complaints and lawsuits start with unmet expectations. So when developing intentional care ministries, use crafted intake forms that set expectations and clarify your policies so those looking from outside know exactly how you're trying to help care for, encourage, and disciple your people. Well, listen, thanks for taking the time to listen to this video and carefully consider the value of connecting people who need help with people who help. God bless you as you faithfully carry out his calling for you and for your church.